does leave us with 7.5 minutes to just pull our three speakers back up, Bill, Malcolm, Sheena, Carter and Justin, and join us in a brief panel session. We do have a few questions that have come in through Q&A, so please keep them coming in. For the ones that we can't answer, our speakers will follow up with you accordingly during the symposium or after. So we might kick off. Bill, if you could pop your yourself off mute. We've got a question to you from Wolfie Wagner, which why has the dairy industry productivity growth stagnated to be 0 over the last decade, and what can we do about it? And you've got, I'll give you a minute to answer, Bill. So you will need to pop yourself off mute though, mate. Perfect.
Yeah.
So yeah, growth, why has productivity growth stagnated over the last 10 years, Bill?
Yeah, it's quite simple. Not enough, Justin. So it was masterly presentation, and it really, but many aspects of what Justin said is part of the answer. Maximising milk solids per system by maximising homegrown pasture consumed. The biggest cost you got your land and your capital in cattle and land. You've got to get the maximum milk solids from that big cost. To get the maximum milk solids, you've got to get the maximum grass grown and consumed on that fixed asset. In brief, that's part of the answer. The other part is to do with R&D. It's to do with the emphasis on R&D. I think the emphasis is misplaced on thinking genetics on animals is going to save us. It's one part of the system. The key to me is getting more homegrown feed down their throats, getting them, maximising the milk solids produced from homegrown feed grown from the land, which is your big investment.
Perfect, Bill, and you're on time as well. I'd actually like to ask a comment from both Justin and Sheena around that exact question as well, because I think it very much ties into both your thought processes. So again, productivity in the dairy industry. Justin, what do you reckon?
That's a good question. I think maybe controversially, I'll say that the dairy industry has lost its way a little bit. I think that there's been too much push on milk solids per hectare and sort of counting statistics rather than financial statistics. And I think that possibly sometimes it's hard to assess. You always want to do more, but you might be going in the wrong direction, and sometimes it's too late, especially with overheads. I think that it's really hard to unpour concrete. So I think sometimes people can get caught up in accepting higher overheads and always pushing the limits of what they could do, and sometimes they can come unstuck. But we were very fortunate that we always had low overheads, which is helping us out greatly now. So it's really hard to come back from that once you go over the point.
Okay, thanks, Justin. And Sheena, again, thoughts from yourself. Could I also ask though that you touch on the risk of overcapitalisation, maybe in this sense as well, because I get the feeling that's certainly part of the challenge. Yeah.
Yeah, Greg, I guess, I mean, I don't have too much to add to what Bill and Justin have already said. I think they've captured most of it, and I think it's really important that people look within their own business and try and focus on the system they've got and the resources that they've got, and making that work for them as well as they can, as Justin has tried to do in their situation. Rather than perhaps looking outside the business and for, you know, the newest and the flashiest thing to do. And yeah, I think it is a big challenge in terms of, you know, accepting that perhaps you have already got the resources there, you just need to be using them differently or managing them in a slightly different way. So what was the second part of the question, Greg?
Just, yeah, that touch on overcapitalisation, which came up in your presentation, and just the risk of that from a profitability point of view.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, this is a huge challenge in the industry, not, you know, just pouring concrete, as Justin has alluded to, but, and there's a question in there, in the typed questions from Andrew Smith regarding, you know, people doing jobs in-house, using less contractors. And I guess this is a situation that we're seeing with farms. It's a challenge in New South Wales, as other parts of the country, but where it is really difficult to get contractors in. So people start looking at doing all their own work in-house, buying all their own machinery, again, which is, you know, part of this over-capitalisation. It's a tricky one that I don't think you can have a straight answer for, because in some cases it's actually a risk management strategy, because, you know, people aren't often able to get the contractor in time, and have to accept reduced feed quality with that, with a later, you know, hay or silage making. So it is tricky, but I guess if you're going to over-capitalise, that's your choice. You need to just be prepared to accept a lower margin that may come with it, depending where you are and what you're capitalising on.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Sheena, and thank you to everyone that submitted questions. We've probably got time for one more. Justin, question to you from the Bega region. Do you feed concentrates on an individual cow production or a blanket feed your herd?
No, the level of concentrate, well, we blanket feed the herd. For starters, we don't have individual feeders. I think there probably is maybe some merit in it, but our dairy doesn't have the technology to do that effectively or efficiently. So we blanket feed the cows. I will say that having the split calving system, getting those marginal response curves right on the cows is a bit of a challenge. So yeah, so that's certainly, I'll certainly take that point as accepted, but it's really just a matter of understanding costs, returns, responses, and managing it from there.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Justin. And I would certainly like to sit and chat with you guys all day, as I'm sure our participants would. Unfortunately, that brings us to the end of our time, so that the questions that have come through the Q&A will certainly follow up with everyone that has submitted those in due course. I would encourage you to use the Q&A function during preceding sessions, and if you particularly like a question, please bump it up the list. That just helps the chair get a sense of what's most pertinent. So again, just to close off the session, a big thank you to Professor Bill Malcolm, Sheena Carter and Justin Walsh. This session was proudly brought to you by Dairy New South Wales. And our next session will be on society, kicking off at 10:30. So that actually gives us a 5-minute break. So please stay online, refresh yourselves and come back ready at 10:30. So thanks very much to our speakers from session 1. What a way to start. Good job. Thank you.